It was 11:47 p.m. A light rain was falling on the Black Ridge Terminal, an old railway station in London. The platform was almost empty, and the yellow light above it flickered on and off as if the power would go out at any moment. Ethan Walker dragged his suitcase onto Platform 3. The exhaustion was evident on his face. He hadn't slept in 3 days. His younger sister Lily had suddenly disappeared. The police had only one thing to say. Her last known location was midnight train number 13. Ethan had never heard the name of this train before. Suddenly, the digital board on the platform lit up. Arrival, train no. 13. Time, 12 a.m. The strange thing was that there was no other train name on the entire schedule. The air suddenly became very cold. Ethan looked around. The people who had been there a few moments before had all disappeared. A distant, eerie sound of track scraping could be heard. Out of the darkness, an old, rusty train slowly pulled up to the platform and stopped. Its windows were black, as if there was no light inside. The door opened automatically with a long click. No conductor, no announcement, just silence. Ethan's heart was pounding, but the thought of finding Lily was compelling him to go inside. As soon as he entered the train, the door slammed shut behind him. Train 12:03 a.m., inside train number 13. The atmosphere inside was even stranger. Dim yellow lighting, old leather seats, and the strange smell of dampness and dust pervaded the air. There was only one passenger in the entire carriage, an old woman, white hair, straight waist, and eyes that were constantly looking at Ethan. Ethan asked hesitantly, "Excuse me, have you seen a girl here? Blonde hair, name Lily." The woman didn't answer, just gently raised a finger to the empty seat in front. Ethan went there and sat down. At that moment, the train started moving. Ethan looked out the window, but nothing was visible outside. No city, no lights, no trees, only deep darkness, as if the train had entered a tunnel with no end. Then suddenly the old woman spoke. Her voice was cold and rough. "Anyone who gets on here doesn't go back of their own accord." Ethan smiled slightly. "I just have to find my sister." The woman nodded slowly. "That's what everyone says." Ethan couldn't understand anything. At that moment, the train speaker suddenly turned on. A broken voice rang out. "Next stop, Memory Lane." The train began to slow down. Suddenly, the lights in the carriage went out. A few moments later, when the light returned, the old woman was gone. The seat was empty, but there was water spread over it, as if a soaked person had just sat there. Ethan's throat went dry. At that moment, the door to the back compartment slowly opened. A low voice came from inside. "Ethan." It was Lily's voice. Exactly. His mind was telling him to stop, but his heart was forcing him to move forward. He slowly started walking towards the darkness. Inside the train, the clock showed 12:11. Ethan was slowly moving towards the dark compartment from which Lily's voice had come. The floor creaked with each step, as if someone was breathing beneath him. When he reached the door, he stopped and took a deep breath. It was completely dark inside. Only a faint blue light flickered in the distance. "Lily," he called out in a low voice. There was no answer, but the next moment, the door closed automatically. Fuck! Ethan turned around in shock. Now he was trapped inside. Train 12:13 a.m., new compartment. This compartment was different from the previous one. There were old pictures on the walls. But as Ethan got closer, his heart stopped. Those pictures were not ordinary. In each picture, people were sitting inside the train, and everyone's faces were frozen in fear. Suddenly, his gaze stopped at one picture. His hands started shaking. In the picture, he was standing himself, in the exact same clothes. The date was written on the back. 12 a.m., passenger added. Ethan immediately tried to take the picture off the wall, but the picture didn't move, as if it were part of the wall. At that moment, children's laughter echoed from behind. Slowly, then faster, then suddenly stopped. Ethan looked back in horror. The carriage was empty, but wet footprints were forming on the floor. as if unseen footsteps were coming toward him. 1, 2, 3. The steps stopped right in front of him. The air became cold as ice. Then a whisper was heard. "You're late." Ethan said in a panic, "Where's Lily?" Silence. Then suddenly the whole carriage began to shake. The lights began to turn on and off rapidly. And each time the light came on, a shadow would come closer to him. First far away, then closer, then right behind him. The light came on again. Ethan slowly looked back. A long shadow stood behind him, human-like, but unnaturally long. Its face was hidden in the darkness. Its hands were unusually long, which were slowly moving towards Ethan's shoulder. Ethan screamed and tried to back away, but the door was closed. The shadow bent down and came closer to him, and said in a low voice, "This train runs on memories." Suddenly, images began to play in Ethan's mind. Childhood, Lily laughing, rainy day, and then an accident. The car skids, screams, the sound of breaking glass. Ethan grabbed his head. "No, that's not true." But the voice came again. "You could have saved her." Suddenly the walls of the carriage began to shift. He was no longer on the train. He was standing on the same road where the accident had happened years before. The car was upside down. Inside, Lily was sitting and crying, and Ethan stood outside, scared, unable to move. The scene suddenly broke. He was back on the train. He fell to his knees on the ground. His breathing was rapid. Then a light appeared from under the front door, and with it, Lily's voice was heard again. This time, it was weaker. "Brother, get me out of here." The door slowly opened, but as soon as the door was half open, the shadow behind him screamed loudly. The entire train shook. The speaker blared. "Warning. Passenger trying to leave memory zone." Ethan felt someone grab his leg. He looked down. Fingers like black smoke were emerging from the floor and grabbing him, and the shadow was moving quickly toward him. The time inside the train was 12:19. Ethan was lying on the ground, his legs tightly gripped by fingers like black smoke. He was trying to free himself with all his might. "Let go of me." But as he moved, those fingers were getting harder and harder. The front door was half open, and behind it stood a shadow of someone in the white light. "Ethan." It was Lily's voice, weak, scared, but alive. Ethan stretched his hand towards the door with all his might. Suddenly, the tall shadow behind him shouted angrily. The entire carriage shook. The speaker echoed again. "The passenger is breaking the rules. Memories are incomplete." The pictures on the walls began to shake. The people in each picture were now moving. They were looking at Ethan through the glass. They were asking for help. Someone hit the glass hard. Knock, knock, knock. Ethan's breathing quickened. He realized all these people must have been passengers on this train once, and could never go back. Suddenly, there was a loud jolt. All the light went out. When the light returned a few moments later, Ethan was not alone. He was standing in a room. This was his childhood home. The color of the walls, the old sofa, even the window curtains were the same. Laughter came from the kitchen. Little Lily came running out. "Brother, look what I made." Ethan's eyes became moist. "Lily?" But suddenly the scene changed. The laughter turned into screams. The room was plunged into darkness. And the same night of the accident began again. The rain, the road, the sliding car. This time Ethan could see everything clearly. He remembered. Lily was alive after the accident. She was asking for help. But Ethan had run away from the car in fear. He went to get help, but it was too late to return. Too late. Ethan fell to his knees. "It wasn't my fault. I was scared." Just then the same shadow appeared behind him. "Faye, this is a door." The shadow spoke. "This train brings those who run away from their past." Ethan asked in a trembling voice, "Where is Lily?" The shadow spoke softly. "She is waiting for your decision." The train whistle blew loudly. The scene changed again. Ethan was standing in the same carriage again. The front door was now fully open. There was white light inside, and Lily was standing in that light. But something was strange. His feet were not touching the ground. His eyes were unusually still. "Brother, will you stop this time?" A thrill ran through Ethan's body. He understood. This was not just a chance to save Lily. This was a test to face his fear. The shadow behind him was moving quickly towards him. The floor began to turn into black smoke again. The speaker shouted, "Final stop approaching." The train's speed increased dangerously. The walls began to tremble. Outside the windows, hundreds of faces were now visible in the darkness, running alongside the train. Everyone was screaming. Everyone wanted to get in. Lily held out her hand. "Hurry up!" Ethan closed his eyes for a moment and began to make a decision. The fear of the past behind, the unknown end ahead. And at that moment, the train suddenly brakes hard. The time inside the train was 12:29. The entire carriage shook with a loud brake. Ethan fell to the ground. The screaming faces outside the windows suddenly disappeared. Silence fell everywhere. Only the sound of the train engine's heavy breathing remained. Lily stood in the white light in front, her hand still extended towards her. "Brother, time is running out." Ethan slowly got up, but as soon as he took a step forward, the shadow behind him emerged from the walls and spread throughout the compartment. He was no longer just a shadow. He was taking shape. A long body, bones like broken angles, and a face. Seeing the face, Ethan's body went limp. That face was his own. The shadow smiled, but his smile was inhuman. "Finally you recognize me." Ethan backed away. "This is not possible." The shadow said, "I am your fear, your regret, the moment you kept running from." Suddenly scenes started playing on the walls. The time after the accident, Lily was asking for help, and Ethan was standing far away, trembling. The shadow said again, "You left her alone. That's why this train brought you back." Tears welled up in Ethan's eyes. "I was scared." And the fear killed her. These words echoed throughout the carriage. The train's lights turned red. The speaker shouted, "Confession required." The ground began to shake. Black smoke began to come out of the walls. Lily's voice was getting weaker. "Brother, if you don't accept the truth, then we'll both be left here." Ethan's hands were shaking. He told himself the truth for the first time. "Yes, I was scared. I could have saved her, but I ran away." As soon as he said these words, a loud echo arose inside the train. The shadow screamed in pain. His body began to break. "No, you shouldn't have accepted me." The light began to spread rapidly. All the pictures on the walls broke one by one. The people trapped inside them began to dissolve in the light. The train speed began to slow down. The speaker said in a soft voice, "Truth accepted." The shadow weakened and spread across the ground, but it didn't end. He said one last time, "Remember, every journey has a price," and then disappeared into the darkness. The light ahead grew brighter. Lily was very close now. There was peace on her face, but a strange sadness in her eyes. "You came. This time you didn't run away." Ethan took her hand. This time his hand was warm. "Real." The train slowly began to stop. For the first time, something appeared outside the window. A deserted platform, on which was written, "Final stop." But as the door began to open, the speaker echoed for the last time, "Only one passenger may exit." Ethan's heart stopped. "One." Lily smiled softly and looked at him, and her grip began to loosen. The time inside the train was 12:38. The door was slowly opening. The platform outside was shrouded in white fog. The sign above clearly read, "Final stop." Ethan's hand was still in Lily's, but the speaker's voice echoed again, "Only one passenger can get out." Ethan's heart beat faster. What does this mean? Why can't we both go? Lily looked at him silently. There was no fear in his eyes, only peace. And that was the scariest thing. Lily said softly, "Because I'm from here, Ethan. Ethan shook his head immediately. No, no, I'm taking you. Lily replied in a soft voice. This is what you always wanted, but the reality is different. Suddenly the fog on the platform began to clear, and Ethan saw. It was the emergency ward of the hospital. The doctors were running. Someone was lying on a stretcher. Ethan looked carefully, and his breath stopped. He was lying on the stretcher himself. Bandages on his head, injuries on his body. The machines were beeping. Lily's voice came from behind him. It wasn't just me who was in the accident. Memories began to come flooding back. After the accident, when he went to get help, on the way, his own car had also been involved in an accident. He had fallen into a coma. Train number 13. It was a journey between life and death. The speaker spoke in a soft but deep voice. Train number 13 brings those souls who can't decide whether to go back or stop. Ethan's hand began to tremble. So, you... Lily smiled. There was sadness in that smile. I didn't make it that night, brother. Tears began to flow from Ethan's eyes. No, that's not true. But you can. He held Ethan's hand tightly. That's why you were brought here, so you could forgive yourself. The lights inside the train began to dim. The walls began to turn into fog. The speaker echoed. Decision required. The platform door had opened completely. There was life outside. Breath, light, reality. Inside the train behind there was peace. Silence. And Lily. Ethan had broken down. I can't leave you again. Lily wiped her tears away. This time you're not leaving me. You're choosing life. The train whistle blew loudly. Time was running out. The ground began to shake. Lily slowly let go of his hand. Go, and don't be afraid this time. Ethan looked at her one last time, and took a step toward the door. Each step felt heavy, as if someone was pulling him back. When he reached the door, he stopped. He turned back. Lily was now disappearing into the mist, but she was smiling. Ethan closed his eyes and stepped onto the platform. As he stepped out, the train door slammed shut. The whistle blew, and train number 13 disappeared into the fog.